Okay, so I officially welcome all of you to the day one of our Fusion Compensation training session. It is going to be a very comprehensive session covering all the configuration, not only with just the compensation module, but also some of the related configurations like the eligibility profiles and a little bit on fast formulas related to the module. And we will try to stick to the requirements and needs and configurations that are pertaining towards the compensation module. So that is the objective, and the training is going to be followed by an actual live project which we have compiled based on some of the standard requirements that we have gotten so far. So at the end of the training, after the 5-day session of the training, it's going to there will be a live project, and what the objective of the live project is that you're going to work as a team. Whoever has signed up for the live project session, you are going to work as a team. We will be doing a requirement gathering session, so you will go through that session. Based on that, you are going to build a solution, and we will have a mock conference room pilot 1 followed by the user acceptance test. So that is the objective, is that it's not just learn the concepts or the functional topics, but actually be in a situation where you are implementing a project. Okay, so that's the idea behind this training. So, and if you already have practical project experience, there are some I know that who have signed up only for the training. That's fine if you have project experience, but that's going to be the highlight of this training, is going to be followed by an actual live project. Okay. It's very unique. You'll not get something like this. There will be a lot of trainings conducted, but it's going to be, the project is going to be very unique. So let's get started. So before we start about the training, I would spend a minute or two talking a little bit about ERP Web Tutor. Okay, so we launched in 2012 as a video blogging site. We started posting different videos on EBS, and from there, we have created around 625 hours of content, including the live sessions as well as the self-paced sessions that we have created. Looks like Abul, you're not able to hear, so folks, just give me a moment. Let me see what's going on with him. Okay, let's get going. So hopefully you'll be able to join using the browser. So as we were saying that, we have created a lot of content in the past, and we have now trained over 6,000 students. So that's a significant number. Our YouTube hits have also, is approaching 1 million. So we are really proud to be doing what we have been doing so far. And we have visitors from over 130 countries. So when we do our web analytics, we have found that we have actually been visited by almost all countries in the world. So that's a significant achievement. And this is where I really take pride that we have actually helped students change careers and succeed in the Oracle ERP areas. So there were a lot of students who did not have any Oracle or Oracle e-business suite, nothing related to Oracle in the past before they joined, and they actually joined, learned, and completely switched their careers from some different lines to Oracle apps and now Fusion. So really I feel proud to be able to help making and shaping people's careers there. Now, whatever we do, we will continue to innovate, and we will continue to motivate people with one and only one objective, that is, we will never compromise on quality. So those of you who have attended previous sessions, that speaks volume of the quality that we have maintained, that we have gotten so many students joining multiple courses, repeating subscriptions. So that tells me that you guys really like what you're doing, and you are continuing to support us, and I really thank you for that. So with that, let's get going and get started with the course objectives for this session. So what are we going to achieve after this course? Okay, you'll be able to set up the fundamental configuration components related to Fusion compensation. And some of the examples would be elements, salary basis, eligibility profiles. Now, some of these components that you're seeing may not be just for Fusion compensation, but Fusion compensation uses these components. And we will talk about different scenarios where we will use these different components, okay? So now, the next thing that we are going to learn, we will have a very good understanding of grades, grade rates, grade ladders, which are crucial for compensation planning. Now, grades, grade rates, again, could be considered as core HCM modules, related to core HCM modules, but these are used heavily in determining your compensation recommendations in the compensation module. So we are going to use grades, grade rates a lot for compensation planning, okay? And not every client might be using grades or grade rates, but it is very important that we understand the concepts and how they are used in the workforce compensation module. We will talk about this functionality called the automatic grade step progression process. Now, this was introduced somewhere in release 11 and is a very powerful feature. Maybe not everybody is aware of that. And this is something that I actually encountered when I was implementing a client who was in release 9. And they wanted something like this, and this functionality was not there. We are going to see a live demo of this particular process in today's class, okay? We will also understand the various roles related to Fusion compensation. We are not going to talk about the roles, but the main idea is to understand that what are the different roles that you need specific for Fusion compensation, okay? Of course, we're going to configure and test the workforce compensation plans because that's what we want to see. That's what the primary objective of this session, and that is what we are going to focus. We will spend a bulk of our time setting up and testing the workforce compensation plans, and even the project that we will have is going to be on the workforce compensation plan, because that is where that is what the most important piece of configurations amongst the entire workforce compensation suite, okay? We'll also talk about how to configure and test individual compensation plans. So individual compensation plans, we will see that how we can do one-off compensations, and which is how it is different from the workforce compensation or the mass compensation plans. We will configure and generate total compensation statements. We will see what is that, but in short, that is something that will cover not only the components coming from your workforce compensation, but it can include your benefits, benefit compensation, any kind of compensation or benefits that you can think of when you are in an organization. It could be monetary or cash benefits, it could be stocks, it could be your benefits, what the company is contributing. So it is it's a complete view of all possible compensation that you are getting in that company, okay? We'll also show you how to run various batch processes. So Fusion compensation module uses a lot of batch processes to process, especially used for generating compensation statements, also like total compensation statements, also starting and refreshing data from the core HCM module for the workforce compensation plan. It can reevaluate employees, maybe somebody can get terminated, someone no longer eligible for the compensation plan for that specific year. So all of that can be handled using these batch processes that Fusion Compensation Module offers. There are some global settings that we will talk about that also drives what you can see on the compensation history, how many years of history you can view. So that topics will also be covered. Okay. Now, what is our agenda for today's session? So we're going to have a brief introduction of Fusion Compensation, how the compensation module works, just a quick overview in the application. Otherwise, there'll be too much deck. So we will go into the application and we'll show you how the process is, especially people coming from EBS compensation workbench experience, they can see how it is different. People coming from SAP compensation can see how the Fusion compensation screen looks like. And as an end user, you can also see how powerful this module is and how flexible it is. We will talk a little bit about the functional setup manager overview, which is the very generic topic, not just compensation, but this is something Fusion HCM as a whole uses. Okay, we will start seeing that what we need in order to get started with our implementation, grade, rate, salary basis. We will see the demo on how to set up the grade step progression. We'll have a quick overview of elements and eligibility profiles. Okay, so as we progress, I'm going to explain each and every topic, and I'm also going to share my experience with you on different areas where, how you use it from an implementation standpoint. Say, for example, elements. Do you really create elements as the compensation implementation expert? Or what kind of implementation requires the compensation team to set up the elements? So we're going to talk about some variations as you go from project to project. So different projects will have different needs. Okay. Now, eligibility profiles is something which is used by a lot of modules. So we will focus on the areas based on my previous experiences. What are the areas in the eligibility profiles that we usually leverage when we implement the compensation module? Okay. So we will start with the introduction of the module, the Fusion Compensation, some of the product highlights. And this is where I want you to pay close attention that if you have done EBS or other products, you will know what this product is capable of. Okay. It delivers the flexibility to build from simple to highly complex reward system for global organizations, while providing simplified decision making and consistent messaging to your workforce. So let's focus on a couple of terms here, okay? And this list, the product highlights, as you go through the session, you will see that this just list goes on. You will find great functionalities in the product. Okay, so we will do a quick demo how to navigate and how to view the basic compensation. Otherwise, like I said, it's going to be too much slides and slides. So let's go into the application. So these are some of the compensation tasks, and we will see that in the application. Okay. So let's go to the application and see how the Fusion compensation model looks. Okay. Both from an employee standpoint, from the compensation administrator, how the plan looks like, how the worksheet looks like. We talked so highly about the capabilities, right? So it's important that we actually see it now. Okay. So I'm going to give you two fields here. First is from a configuration standpoint, just to give you a quick overview of how easy it is to configure. And then I'm going to show you how efficient it is from the line manager or a compensation manager standpoint. Okay, so there is a question here. Matthew says, will the demos be in R12 or an earlier? So this is release 12. The version that you're seeing is release 12, and this is the environment that you will have access to, and all the practice sessions, everything will be done in release 12. Yes, we will come to that, Tapasya, what roles, and we're going to talk about the roles. But let's just take a quick look of how the compensation module looks like. Okay. So as a compensation implementation person, okay, what do you see and how do you navigate? With once you have the appropriate roles, which we will talk about in the following slides today, you will see a link for compensation. Okay. If you go to this compensation area, it's going to take you to this page where you can see administer workers. Here you can also see employees. Okay. So let's try to look for an employee here, just like any core HCM. Okay. Now, but look at the difference here. The main difference between core HCM and this is that this screen will allow you to see the plans, the compensation plans in which this person is eligible for. Okay. You can add or you can just reprocess. You can see that this person is currently eligible for this merit plan, and there are a couple of plans defined in the application. You can reprocess. So if something has changed for this employee and this person was initially not eligible, now becoming eligible, or vice versa, if you can reprocess, and you can also add a plan in which this person is by default ineligible. Okay. So eligibility profile will drive that this person is eligible for this plan or not. Say for example, you say that for this year's, let's take 2017, right? So anybody who is hired on or before July 1st will be eligible for this year's merit cycle, right? Now, somebody joined in August but has been an excellent candidate, okay? So by default, that person is not eligible. But because of his exceptional performance, you can do an exception and add that person to the plan, okay? So this is how you can handle those kind of scenarios, okay? So that's the area. So this is just to basically administer workers and see which plans they are a part of and how you can add somebody who is not eligible for the plan, or you can also drop somebody who is eligible for the plan and now you want to make that person ineligible. Okay. Okay. So let me go over some of the other functionalities here. What we have, we're going to talk about these tasks in details, but just to give you a quick preview of what it does. So you can manage your base pay. Since compensation uses salary, you can actually manage salary basis and manage salary. Compensation roles allows you to have that access. Okay. Manage salary is nothing but you can actually go in and find an employee and view that person's salary. Okay. And you can also make salary changes in the compensation module. You can download the salaries using Excel, and that way it's, you don't need to have any report. You can just download a dump of all the employee salary in Excel sheets. Okay. Then this is the workforce compensation, which is the main area to configure the workforce compensation, which is the mass compensation. Okay. You can also act as a proxy, which means that as a compensation manager, you can proxy in as somebody else and do the worksheet update, the budgets on somebody else's behalf. Like budgets, right? Talking about budgets. So who do you think will hold the entire budget for the workforce compensation plan? The entire budget. Who does it belong to? Any guess? I'm doing a workforce compensation. Who do you think holds the entire budget? Manoj says comp admin. Anybody else? Any opinion? Any guesses? The department. I'm saying that I'm doing the workforce compensation for my company. Okay. Who provides the money? Who funds it? Finance department. Tapasya says. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Okay. If none, then let's go ahead. No, it's not the finance department. It's not the, so the top level comp manager. Jayant, who do you think that is? Bernard says highest level manager. Who do you think that is in the company? Who is the highest level manager in the organization? CEO. CFO. Exactly. CFO. CEO is above the CFO, right? So yes. So the entire money is actually held by the CEO. He distributes the money to the lower level managers, CFO. It then goes to the VP, goes to directors, managers in that fashion. Okay. Do you think the CEO has time to go into Fusion workforce compensation and do anything? Most likely not. You know, he has bigger things to do. So what will happen is he's going to probably sign that, okay, this is the amount we are allocating for this year's. So all he does is signs and gives the compensation manager, who's probably the VP or the director of compensation, who actually uses this module. So they can proxy in as the CEO and can do the budgets, whatever the budget policy is, okay, whether it's managers are going to hold, each level of managers are going to get their own budget. Some companies use as like, okay, let's do a default of 3% or 4% of all the employees. That becomes my budget. And then the managers would actually, I can give a 1% increase to someone and 5% increase to somebody else. But as a whole, the company, the budget would be, based on certain numbers. There are also some third-party organizations who looks into the comp ratio of employee salary. Tower Watson is one company who does that, I know. That all they do is that they get the employee's salary, current year salary, they look at the comp ratio, and they come up with a percent to keep the company within the budget, like based on the company's performance, what they think should be the budget. And then that becomes the overall, the pool of money that will be used for the annual merit cycle. Okay. And once they come up with that amount, the dollar amount, the budget, then different types of budgeting methodologies can be used. Okay. But the point is the CEO never goes in. The CFO probably doesn't go in. If it's a large organization, they have better things to do. So this act as proxy manager allows the comp manager to proxy in as any person in the organization, any manager in the organization who will have access to a particular workforce compensation plan. Now let me see. Let me click on that and see what happens. It takes me here. I can search for a manager, and what do I see? You cannot switch to another manager because your user ID is not associated with a person record, which tells me that as an implementation user, you cannot perform this task. You must be defined in the system as an employee in order to act as proxy. Make sense? Just wanted to show you that. So when you are being a part of an implementation, in order to test your compensation plans, you must log in as an employee. Okay, you must give the appropriate roles to an employee and then perform your testing. Okay. We will talk about global models. You can see that there's probably something defined. No, maybe not. So we will talk about global models. So it's what you do is you just build something and you can use different criteria. Okay. So one of my clients, what they did is they had multiple countries. Okay. They operate in 5 different countries, and different countries have different inflation rates. So they have different increase rates, right? So in the US, you will probably see that 3 to 4% increase is pretty standard, okay? 4% increase is pretty good recommendation. Whereas if you think of India, 4% increase is like almost no increase, okay? Minimum 10 to 15% increase is what is expected in an annual merit cycle. So what we did is we were able to build a model using country, okay? And say the criteria is country, and then we can say build a model. I'm just giving you plain overview, okay? Don't try to think of these particular topics at this point, just to give you a feel of what the product is capable of, okay? So here what you can do is, so right now the only country defined in the application is United States. Probably that's where we only have employees. But if you had multiple countries, then you will see the list of countries, and you can say that my total budget for United States would be 4% of the employee salary. So that calculates my total budget pool that I need in order to perform this recommendation. Whereas if there is a different country which will have a higher increase rate, I can put a different percentage, okay? So that way the CFO or the CEO will know that if we use these percentages in different countries, what my budget will end up being, okay? So that is the purpose of models, okay? Matthew has a question. Can you model based on overall amount and work back to percentages? I don't think you don't need to create a model for that, okay? When you do a model, you can actually choose this option, n amount per person, but it does not make sense, right? It's just easier to come up. See, you use model only when you're trying to come up with something. And if you try to put a percent, yes, you can do that. Let's see how that's going to look like. Okay. So you can see that it's going to give you amount for each worker. The reason I'm saying that it does not make sense is somebody can have a salary of 50,000. The CEO can have a salary of 1 million, 2 million. So with an amount for each worker, you may not arrive at the right numbers. Okay, that's why, yes, this functionality is there. Maybe for a budget, maybe for bonuses, kind of makes sense. But overall modeling for the entire organization does not make sense. But if you try to build models based on some other criteria, so there are different criteria here, right? So you can say that this department, so if it is a specific department, if it is a specific job, then you can say, okay, if the job is, you have to define your jobs that way then. But if the job is executives or higher, something like that, then you can put some flat amount, kind of makes sense. But if it is all employees, then percentage makes more sense. Okay, so that's the purpose of model. Again, we are going to take a deep dive into all of these topics. Okay, so just hold on to your questions for now. I'm just trying to show you what the functionalities are there. Okay, so we talked about global models. You can view some administration reports that just tells you, what is happening in the organization, who has done what. Manage plans that will show you the plans that has been defined in the application. Okay, I'm going to spend most of your time in this area as an implementer. Manage active plans. So you can have, this will manage plans is going to give you all the plans. Manage active plans will only show you the active plans. Okay, so you can retire some of the plans, the older plans that no longer applies. So you can go to manage active plan to see what is active. Run batch processes. Okay, so there are some batch processes that's available. We will talk about these batch processes when we talk about workforce compensation in details, but there are some batch processes that you can navigate from the compensation area. So the nice thing about the compensation module is that everything you need is under compensation. Okay, you don't need to navigate out of that area. Pretty much like almost never. The reason I say almost, that there could be certain cases that yes, you have to define something outside, but in most cases, from a pure compensation standpoint, you pretty much get everything in this area. Okay. And then the global settings is something that you can, like I said, we will talk about the global settings where you can control how many years of salary history will be displayed and things like that. Total compensation statement you can configure using this area. So what needs to be displayed on the total compensation statement. As of now, we do not have any total compensation statement defined in this application, but hopefully by the next session we will have, and this is the last topic. So by then we will definitely have something configured to show you. Okay. Then the next area is your individual compensation plans. So you can define the plans, you can define the compensation. Manage compensation is just to assign somebody an individual compensation. Manage plans is where I can define a sign-on bonus. Manage compensation is where I can give that sign-on bonus to an employee. Okay. And there are some third-party plans. It could be some of the other contributions. You're contributing to some third-party. It could be some unions or some other organization to which the employees are contributing some amount. Okay, so you can define those. Grade step progression. We will talk about the grade step progression today in the following slides. Compensation history. You can manage how many years of compensation history you want to display, and this is where you can view the compensation history. And these are some of the common configurations. Okay. Batch parameters, external data, eligibility profiles is very important. Profile rating models is very important if you are integrating the ratings in the compensation module. So we will talk about those in details as we go to the workforce compensation module. Okay. So let me now show you how to proxy in as a compensation manager. Okay. So this is an employee who has the compensation manager and compensation administrator roles. Okay. So now when I go into the same compensation area, I see the same set of tasks. And now if I try to act as proxy, which I was trying to show you, I just want to show you how the worksheet looks like. Okay. Now, by default, it is showing the employee herself, Brenda. Now, as you can see that Brenda, as the comp manager, is not in a line manager or a compensation manager capacity from managing the worksheet. Okay. But if she tries to search somebody else, so let's try to search some other employee who is a manager. So let's take Olinda Johnson. When I switch as Olinda Johnson, then I can see that these are the plans that Olinda Johnson manages. Okay, so let me go into the plan. And you can see that how the worksheet is going to look like. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly walk through this screen. So this is called the compensation worksheet. Okay, and all these columns that you are seeing, these can be controlled what you want to display. Okay, there are lots of delivered columns that you can use, like pretty exhaustive. And if that is not sufficient, Oracle has given something called the custom columns, where you can write a formula to derive any value from any field in the application and display that. Okay, here is an example of that. So let's see, this is a compensation group. Okay, compensation group, as you can see that you cannot, if you have used the Fusion applications as such, you know that there's no delivered field in the application called compensation group. Now this is something, it's probably either defined in a flex field or people group, but I'm able to display that in the worksheet. Okay, the worksheet can also have alerts that will tell me that if I have done something out of the ordinary. Okay, so that is something that can be configured using alerts. So if I'm giving somebody a more than 10% increase in the US, I need to put a comment. I need to put a justification why. Okay, and those can be configured using alerts. Okay, all of these prompts that you are seeing, actual salary current year, full-time salary current year, all of these prompts can be changed as per client's requirements. Anything that you can think of in this sheet is configurable. Okay, look at this colors. Okay, you get the client says, oh, I want to see this. What is the recommended increase and what is the actual increase in different colors and shades? Okay, so this recommended increase is probably based on some calculations, and then the actual increase is what the actual increase has been awarded. Okay, so all of that can be done. Okay. So you can have multiple tabs on top. So this tab only is related to the salary. Okay, any column that you are seeing here can be made read-only, except certain columns like, say, for example, the employment status. So these are HR data. These are by default read-only. This is only informational purpose. You can view the compensation history of this employee. You can see the job history of this employee. You can add any special attachments. Okay. If I click on the compensation history, let's see if there's any. You can see the entire history of this employee. Okay. Base rate, what was the salary change, what was the percentage change over the period of years. Okay, any recurring payments, so this is the salary. If there are any other bonuses that was awarded in different years, you'll be able to see it under other compensation. Any stock awards, you'll be able to see it under here. So it provides a lot of information. You can also see the job history, but I doubt there's any job changes here. Any notes, like I said, if you are giving somebody a more than 10%, you can put a special note saying, oh, this person has been exceptional, and that's the reason why I'm giving this note. Okay, and you can also mark this as private. Mark this as private. So what will happen? Only to the author. So only I can see it. Okay, I can always give a note. You know, if I can, as a comp manager, I can enforce that if you give more than 10%, you must give a note. Okay, but otherwise, I can give somebody a 3% and I can just make a note for myself. You know, let me think about it. Okay, after a month, and see how the person has done in the last sales cycle, something like that. Okay. Then you have your annual bonus as a different tab. You can put whatever instructions in here. You can, the top section, the summary section is usually the budgets. That's how the default layout is. If you do not want to display the budget section, you can remove this section. If you want to put everything under one tab, you can put that. It's very, very flexible. Okay. The letters, and again, all of these tabs, you can name it whatever you want, okay, based on your client's needs. The letters tab is where you can generate the statements for the employees, okay? So any questions on this so far? I think I have one questions posted. Tabs on top, salary, annual bonus, lump sum bonus. Can we add stocks to it? Yes, we can. Absolutely, we can. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the compensation manager and the line manager, it's exactly the same look and feel. As a compensation manager, you are proxying in as somebody, whereas if you are logging in as that manager, you directly go and see the plans that you manage. Okay, so that's just a quick walkthrough of the Fusion compensation, how the look and feel is. And if I don't want to spend time now on the manager, it's exactly the same. It's just that you cannot proxy in as somebody, it's just yourself. So, but the slides you can always refer to for your future. Okay. So let me go back to the application. I'm going to go back in as my implementation user, because for this tasks I need to be in the application as the implementation user. Okay. How do I get to the functional setup manager area? I go to setup and maintenance. I see it here. I can see it under my navigator, setup and maintenance. And if I have too many roles, now this may not always appear in the same location in the navigator. The last option, and if you have too many roles, the easy option from your user, you go to setup and maintenance. Okay. Now in release 12, the good thing is that you can always bring this to your home page. Okay. So you can use this functionality, the styles functionality, personalize Springboard, and you can decide what you want to see on your home page. Okay. Okay. This is an implementation user. Who cares about me, right? I'm not an employee. I don't care about me. Okay. What I care about is something related to tools. So I need to make sure that my setup and maintenance is there. Okay, right here. Okay. So I'm not an employee. Who cares about my team? Okay. So making it easy, you can reduce, you can control what you see here. Okay. And even as an employee, you can control what you want to display on the screen. Okay. Okay. And even this functionality is configurable. If your client doesn't like this functionality, doesn't want the employees to keep changing, this also can be disabled. But again, setup and maintenance is the area. Okay. So let's go to setup and maintenance. So functional setup manager is basically one area. It is not a task in itself. It is an area in which you can perform multiple tasks, all kinds of tasks. Okay. Not every task can be performed from this area, but a majority of the tasks can be performed from this area. And when it comes to compensation, it's hardly any task that you will need to do from this area. Okay, that's why I'm going to spend the least amount of time. Okay, but talking about offerings and options that we just saw, so the first page that you could see here on the setup and maintenance, the functional setup manager area, you see this offering. The very first one is compensation management. Okay, so if I go here, you can see here when you first time go into the application, very first time the environment has been provisioned for you to implement. You go into the application, you see the compensation management, you want to implement the compensation management module. What will you do? You must enable this module for implementation. Okay, and you remember the examples that I was talking about. What are the different options? You had the options for individual compensation, workforce compensation, total compensation statement, even absence management. You can implement absence management with this particular offering. Okay, workforce profiles, benefits. Now in this environment we have the licenses for all the modules. That's why you can see that all of these are enabled, but it is your responsibility as an implementation consultant to make sure that you only enable the options that the client has licenses for. Most likely they're going to have licenses for these modules. Okay, but just make sure that you check them. Okay. So once you have this particular offering enabled and the options selected, you are ready to create your implementation project. Now, implementation project is something that is very useful when it comes to payroll, uh, global HR, but when it comes to just the compensation module, uh, like I probably never do anything from the implementation project. Okay, I can do everything from that compensation work area. Okay, but I will show you. It's good to create the implementation project to track your progress. Okay, so after this, after today's session, this would be one of your exercises that you need to create your own implementation project. Okay, and when you create your implementation project, make sure that you prefix the project with your initials. So I'm going to use my initials. When I do that, it's going to change the code. You can rename, you can put any description. Here you can see the assigned to, you'll be given the implementation user, and you can keep it defaulted. By default, it's going to assign it to the user as which you are logged in. Start date, finish date, it does not have any significance. It's not going to stop you from doing the project forever, but it's something for tracking purpose. Okay, you go next, and here, if it is a compensation project, you select the offering. Okay, yes, Matthew, you will get all the training guide that I'm using. You'll get a copy of that. Okay. Okay. So for compensation, the key thing is that you must include the top offering. Okay. So from offering and option standpoint, what is happening here? The folder is the offering, and then the different things that you are seeing here, these are the options. Okay. So you must include the offering. Okay. You cannot do this. You cannot just say, oh, my client is only using Fusion Workforce Compensation, so let's just do that. No, you cannot do that. Okay. Before, in older releases, it would allow you to just check. So now things have become smarter. So you must include the top, and then you select whatever your client is using. If they have licenses for all of them, no harm in checking all of these options. Okay. So even though we will not use this functionality, we will not go through the project as such for compensation, it's a good practice that you know and follow this, not just for compensation but overall in Fusion. It's very useful. Save and open project, and you have your project, and you can now start doing your configurations. Now keep in mind, even though this is just compensation, you still have access to tasks that are not just compensation module. Okay, if it gives you access to tasks that you could need even for core HR, because core HR is the heart of the application, right? So it gives you access to the tasks for other core HR modules as well. And if you are responsible for compensation module only, then you'll hardly go through this implementation project. But if you are doing both core HR and compensation, if you are doing a coexistence model with compensation, then there are additional core HR related setups that you need to perform, which is why you need access to these set of tasks that you need to perform. Okay, so that marks the end of creating the implementation project. Let's go back to the slides. Now we're going to talk about grade step progression. Okay. Now, very important topic, very interesting area. what you can do is you can use this grade step progression to move workers automatically from one grade or grade step or grade and step to the next level within the grade ladder. So grade ladder is something that you can build that, okay, from this grade to this grade, so you can build a grade ladder. Now, to answer your question, Manoj, that even if you have a grade ladder that says that, okay, step 1, then step 2, then step 3, HR can always assign a different step, okay? That is informational. I don't think that you can enforce that. Even with the grade step progression, I don't think you can enforce that. Okay. But the grade step progression, what it will do, what I would recommend is that you can tell your client that the grade field will be like a view only, but the only challenge is that when you if you make the grade screen view only, at the time of hire you have to manually assign the step, right? So that time the grade step progression it's not going to be in effect. The grade step progression is going to check, like, let's say you have you have to be in step 1 for 1 year to move to grade step 2. So but HR should be able to assign step 1, and then once you open that field up, HR can assign any step that they want. But HR should be responsible enough not to do that. Okay. But you need a ladder in order to perform this grade step progression. Okay, we call it a progression grade ladder. We're going to add grades to the ladder. We're going to add some rules, and then we're going to run a process that will evaluate who all are eligible to progress. And then you review the results and you accept the updates. Okay, so we will see all the steps. One more question. Can you confirm my understanding? Matthew has this question. Multiple grades attached to a single grade rate, where each grade has its rate range defined. Then each grade rate attaches to a single salary basis. Yes. So a salary basis can only have one grade rate. So if you have multiple salary bases, say annual salary and hourly salary, okay, and then you can have the same grades, let's say professional 1. Somebody can be a professional 1 and be on an annual salary. Somebody can be a professional 1 and be on an hourly salary. So when you define your grade rates, I would recommend, so if you go back to the grade rate screen, when you define the grade rates, you see that the first thing that you do is you choose the frequency and the annualization factor. Okay, so if you really want to display the hourly rate for the employees, then you should define a separate grade rate, which is the hourly grade rate. You can always use the same grades in multiple grade rates, and in the hourly you will select the frequency as hourly and the appropriate annualization factor, and similarly for the salary you're going to select the annual. Okay, and then you will have your two salary bases, annual salary, hourly salary. For the hourly you use the hourly grade rate. For annual salary you use the annual grade rate. Then it will display you the appropriate. So the answer is you can have the same grade be a part of multiple grade rates. You can have the same grade rate be a part of multiple salary bases, but I have not come across a scenario where we would use that. But technically that's possible. But a salary basis can only have one grade rate. One of my clients recently, I came across a scenario like this, where they have the same grade, this professional 3. If you are in Arizona, your rate is different. If you are in California, San Diego, you have a different rate. If you are in California, Los Angeles, you have a different rate. If you are in California, San Francisco, you have a different rate. Okay? In their current system, they would manually handle this. Okay? So what I had to tell them is that they need to split those grades into 4. let's say CA San Diego, CA Los Angeles, CA San Francisco, and Arizona, or non-CA. So then, of course, it's a lot more grades, but that's the only way you can enforce the ranges correctly. Okay. So if you will come across scenarios like that, where clients operate in multiple states and different states have different ranges. Okay. Okay. So let's go back again to the grade step progression, what we were talking about. Okay, so this is a screenshot of the progression ladder. You can use it for your reference. I'm going to skip the slides and I'm going to go into the application straight away. Okay. So let's go to the application. So there is one trick that I'll have to tell you, is that this is my work area, right? So this is my grade step progression. All the tasks are here. Okay. Manage progression grade ladders. In order to use this grade ladder or grade step progression functionality, you must define the ladder from the compensation area. You do not need a compensation license for this, but for some reasons Oracle has placed it in the compensation area. Okay, so we verified that because one of my clients wanted to use the grade step progression because it has nothing to do with compensation as such, and since the tasks are only available under compensation, we made sure that there is no licensing issue by using this functionality. Okay. Now, if you remember, if you have used this application for core HCM, and all of you, if you do not have prior Fusion experience, go through the basic core HCM functionality, at least explore the person management, explore the workforce structure areas at least. Okay. So in the workforce structures areas, so if coming from EBS, this is where we used to call it the work structures. We had jobs, grades, departments, organizations, all of that. So workforce structures is the area where you have these configuration items. Okay. Now, in here, you have something called manage grade ladders. So let me try to find what are the grade ladders that I have. Okay. So I have two grade ladders. Okay. Now this grade ladder, EWT help desk ladder, this grade ladder has been created in the workforce structures area. Okay. This will not work for grade step progression. The EWT help desk progression ladder has been created using the compensation area. So now if I go to manage progression grade ladders, it looks slightly different. Okay. The thing is, whatever you define on either screen appears on both sides. Okay. What that means is that if I create a grade ladder here from the workforce structures, I'm going to see it here. But it's not going to work for grade step progression. Okay. So in order to create a ladder that you want to use for grade step progression, it has to be created from the compensation area. Okay. So that's very important piece of information. The next thing, which in my opinion is a bug, is let's try to create one. So we have a grade. So let me first take a look at the grade. So let me show you the bug. Hopefully it's still a bug. At least a few days ago it was a bug. Okay. Help desk analyst. Okay. So let me cancel this. Create grade ladder, because we are talking about grade step progression, so we should focus on creating the grade ladder from this screen. I'm not going to walk you through this piece of information now. I'm going to go back to the grade ladder that we already have, but I just wanted to show you that issue that you'll face when you're doing this. Grades with step. Okay, that's what we are selecting. Grade set, common set. I'm just showing you the main problem. No, save. Let me select the currency. Okay. Okay, I think this is hourly. So once I save this, right now, what is my next task? I have created a ladder. I'm going to explain these fields just in a moment. But my objective is my ladder needs the grades with steps, correct? So I click here. I click on action. I want to add the grades that I want. Well, now it's no longer an issue. So sometimes what you will face is that this drop down will not appear. Okay? You'll see that this is not showing up. If that happens, what you need to do, what Oracle recommends, I'll also put the Oracle note on that. So it is an occasional bug. Okay. Like when I was creating the ladder, I was seeing that issue. It was not giving me any grades to choose from. Now it's doing me. Okay. So if you encounter that situation, what you should do is after you save this progression grade ladder, you go to this area. Okay. You go to this area, you'll find your grade ladders because again, you'll see the grade ladders on either side. What you do is you edit, you correct, and then you add the grade here. Okay, add to ladder. So you just, let's say you have 10 grades, right, to add. So once you add one of the grades, then all the grades will appear on the other side. That's what happened to me because I was not able to add my grade when I was creating that progression ladder. Okay, so just wanted to share that experience that if you get that issue, you come here, add the grade, save it, go back to the progression ladder, and you'll be able to add the rest of the grades. Okay, so let me cancel and let me open the one that we will see for this demonstration. Okay, normally for all the configurations, I'm going to put an effective start date of 1/1/51. Why are you creating this grade ladder? If you want to use something, you can use it. The status is active. The progression increment, whether you want to use only grade, somebody is moving from one grade to the next grade, or you are using grade and step. Okay. The grade and step allows you to progress from one step to the next and also to the next grade. So if you have something like a G1, if you have something like this, if you have G1 has 1, 2, 3, then you have G2 has 1, 2, 3, you can say, okay, the person moves from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, from then to the G2, 1, and then again similarly that person can progress. Okay, all of that can be configured. Good, so that's grade and step. But if you do not have steps, then you can just do from G1 to G2. Okay. The name of the grade set, grade ladder, what set your grades belong to, the confirmation type. Okay. So if it is manual, When you run the process, it evaluates who all are eligible for the progression. And then you decide who you want to progress and who you don't want to progress. If you choose automatic, then employees who are eligible automatically moves from one grade to the next or one step to the next. Okay? Assignment action. So what is going to be the action that you will see on the employment, that what caused the change? Because it is an assignment change, right? Or employment change. So what is the action for that? So Oracle has this delivered called automated grade step progression. If you want to call it something else, you can create your own action. Okay. Just make sure that you see what action is being used for this particular one, and then create your own action. You can create. Same way, action reason is one action reason delivered. If you want to add any action reason, you can do that. Okay. Next is a grade change can invoke a salary change, because grades has rates, grades has some dollar amounts, some monetary values assigned to it, right? So whether you want to include a salary change as well. If I'm moving from G1 to G2, I'm supposed to make more money. So do you want to do that? This is optional. You can only use grades progression, which means I'm just going to move from one grade to another, but most clients would use the grade and salary together. Okay. So what is the currency of the salary? If you want to use this progression ladder for different countries, you'll have to build one for each country. Okay. So all of that needs to be done. Okay. So, and again, if this is an hourly rate, then you have to choose the appropriate frequency and the annualization factor. Okay. The salary calculation method. So use grade step rate, or you can use a formula to derive the salary. I haven't come across any situation to use a formula, but normally if you're using grade step rate, that should look at the grade step value and it will assign that. Okay. The transaction date. So we have a couple of choices: grade step change date, start of next month, start of next pay period, and you can use a formula. Same thing also there on the grade step change. So normally when clients use this grade step progression, they would prefer, in order to avoid prorating salaries, they would make this on the start of the next pay period. So that way your salary doesn't get prorated. Okay. And then if you use the same as the grade step change date, that means your salary is also changing on the start of the next pay period. And then the rate synchronization is also the transaction date. What is the rate it's going to use? Okay. So once you define that, then you have your grades and steps. So we have seen it, that you go to action, you add a grade. If the grade has steps, it will show you the steps, it will show you the values. Okay, so you can enter the values for each step. Okay. The next is the most important piece, which is the progression rules. So my example has 4 steps. One grade, 4 steps. You can have multiple grades, multiple steps. Okay? Now, what you need to do is you need to assign the eligibility. Okay? So first is my grade rules. So I have the grade, which is the help desk analyst. So what is my rule? All active employees. Okay. Now, if I click on grade rules, that will allow me to see how it is done. Okay. So something, let me check. Okay. So you see here, so these are the different rules. Level 1, step number 1. Okay. Level 2, this is my step 2. When I define the grade steps, I named them as level 2 and then the step number was step 2. So what is my criteria? My criteria is if I have 1 year of service, I have to be in level 1. If in order to be in level 2, I have to have 1 to 2 years of service. Similarly for level 3, 2 to 3 years of service, and level 4 greater than 3 years of service. Okay. And again, similarly, you can say, okay, the next is help desk analyst. Instead of help desk analyst, help desk manager. Okay, so that could be my next grade, and I can say that, like, usually I would say all active employees and then whatever criteria that I have in order to move the person from. So it works very well when employees usually start at the lowest level and then they progress, then it works really well. Okay, uh, but in my opinion, it can be a challenge if you are trying to move employee to a new grade, because then your rules could be very different. You know, some client might say, in order to move somebody from a help desk analyst to a help desk manager, it's not just the length of service. You know, the person has to have an excellent rating in the last year, a lot of criteria. And these rules are nothing but eligibility profiles. Okay, so when we talk about eligibility profiles, we can define the eligibility profiles in a lot of ways. Okay. So these are my different rules. So when I'm creating this, let me show you, let's say if I want to add an progression rule. So here I'm going to find my eligibility profiles. Okay. And what Oracle recommends, and sometimes what you will see is that nothing appears on this page. Okay. You click on the progression rules, you will see nothing. Just don't panic. It's there. Sometimes they just don't appear. But they are there. Okay. So rule name. So first, the most important is, in order to this thing to work, apart from the steps, so in order to be from 1 to 2, so these are the different rules tied to each of these steps, you must also have a rule at the top level. Otherwise it's errors out. Okay. And normally what you do is you build an eligibility profile, like an overarching eligibility profile, so that everybody becomes a part of this, or every employee, whatever, you know, if it's a non-exempt employee only, then you can build something which is very generic that will make sure that all the employees who are in these steps or grades are eligible first. Okay. Then you do the step specific eligibility criteria. So that's why you see here all active employees. It can be made more specific, that all non-exempt employees, something like that, but it should include all the employees. All the help desk analysts in all the steps must be included in the very first rule. Then you make the specific rules. Is that clear? Questions? Any questions? None? Okay. Okay. And you will have access to the environment, right? So you'll have access to all the setups that has been done, and you will so explore the setups. Just one request: do not modify the existing setups, because if that it keeps happening, then we'll have to refresh, and then we will lose all the setup that has been done. So it's important that you see the setups, but you create your own. Okay. So this is how I have defined my rules. So level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, what you need to be. Okay. Now let's see how the process works. In order to see how the process works, I need to run this process called run grade step progression. It is like any other scheduled process. You choose the ladder. Now unfortunately this displays the non-progression ladder as well. Hopefully sometime Oracle will fix it, but you make sure that you choose the right ladder. The effective date. is the date on which the system or this process is going to evaluate who all are eligible. Okay, so I'm doing it as of today. You can also use any other population filters. You can run it for an individual, payroll, department, that way. Or you can also use a formula. Okay. So let me go ahead and submit. So once I submit this, what I need to do is I need to go into another task called review proposed progression and salary updates. Okay. What this will let me do is it's going to show me all the processes that has run. If you do not see your process, you just click on the search icon again and it's going to refresh this area. I can see that this is the process that I just submitted, okay, based on the time. Now what you need to do is you need to click on this. Couple of things here, not processed. That means it found somebody, but it has not processed. Why it did not process? Because you had selected the manual option, okay. Accepted will be nothing at this point because I have not accepted anybody because I just ran the process. If I found 10 people in this process, I accept 5 of them. I said, okay, these guys are let's move them to the next step. The other 5, they are eligible, but they are not ready yet. So I can reject them. Okay. And if something has gone in error, so while trying to evaluate the eligibility profiles or something, if something went into errors. But right now, it has found somebody that tells me that it is not processed. It's definitely found someone. That's why it says not processed is one. So let me see what it has found. Just click on the number. It has found this Ravi Kumar. His proposed grade is help desk analyst because we are only using one grade for this demonstration. And proposed step is level 3. Proposed salary is this, frequency annual. Progression date, we said the beginning of the next pay period. That's why it is giving me 8/20. That's how my pay periods are defined. Salary change date, it's also going to be the same as the grade change date. That's what I selected. Okay. Before I accept or reject, let's make sure what Ravi Kumar has. Going back to person management, and let's search for Ravi. Okay. So let's first take a look at his employment. So he is currently a help desk analyst, which is correct. If I click on this little icon next to the grade, I'm going to see what his level is. Now he is in level 1. Okay. What is the proposed? Is level 3. Why? Because if you look at his hire date, it's 1/5/15. So what is his years of service? It's between 2 to 3 years. Okay. So based on my design, he is eligible for level 3. Okay. Are we good there? Do we understand why it is proposing a level 3? And again, you can always design this eligibility rules in a way that, it could be client specific. So it's like one of my clients, they decided to use, they had steps and they only decide, and their starting step was a trainee. So for every grade, they would use a starting step, which is a trainee step. So what they wanted is that the grade step progression should only work from trainee to a permanent. Beyond that, the grade step progression should not do anything. Okay, so it's only used from trainee to permanent. Question: are grades assigned only at the assignment level or they're associated to jobs? Yes, they are tied to jobs as well. Yeah. Will such an association cascade down to existing assignments? Yes, yes. So let's park this question for some time. I'm going to answer that question towards the end of the session, how the grades and jobs are connected and how you can default the grades from jobs or positions. Okay. Just remind me towards the end of the session. So now at this point, you have reviewed who all are eligible. Okay. And if something went in errors, you will see it under the errors tab. Now, one thing that I would tell you to be careful is that you see here the two options, accept and reject. The moment I select any one of them, it's going to kick the process. There's no submit button. Okay. So train your clients properly that if at all you are accepting, don't just accept and think of hitting a submit button. Okay. Choosing accept means it is accepted. Okay. Choosing reject means it is accepted or it's rejected. Okay. So let's accept. See, it has already submitted something behind the scenes. Okay. So this is done. If I now click done, my status changes, not processed 0, accepted 1. Okay. Now if I go back to Ravi's, let's re-query his data. I think his person number we saw was 1016. Okay. So what was the date that the system selected? Was 8/20. You see here 8/19, this record is now showing an effective end date. If I go to view history, I can see that 8/20 something changed, and what is the action? Automatic grade step progression. Okay. I click on that row, I see the help desk analyst, I see the level 3. What else should I check? What else should I check? The grade step looks fine. Is it that boring? No response? Salary, yes. It makes me feel lonely if you don't respond. If I go to manage salary, 8/20, approved, automatic grade step progression, everything looks fine and dandy, so we are good. Our grade step progression worked perfectly. Okay. Now, what are the variations that you can build? The only variations that you can build is how you design those eligibility profiles for each progression, the rules that you define from each step. Okay, that's the only variation that you can build.